If we look at these cyber threats, typically there have been some which are traditional, but they don't go away because they are traditional. They are still around.
Earlier, when the systems were disconnected, right, when I started my career, many systems were disconnected.
Cybersecurity strategy for 2021, for which we have had wide-ranging consultations with the industry.
Other than this, companies have gone in for IoT. So even the IoT networks have created some new vulnerabilities. On the other side, privacy laws are getting stricter. We have GDPR law already in place. So with this as a background to today's session, I will ask Mr. Anshuman Tiwari to first share his experience before I continue.
Sure. Thanks, Suresh, and thanks to the organizers, all of the entire team. And it's a pleasure to be with Suresh and Naredna sir. Pallavi, thanks for the introduction as well. Just a quick check. I'm audible. I can't look any better than this, but the voice can be clearer.
You are audible. You are audible. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, so my task today, of course, is to give a brief introduction to the subject and also to share some experiences which may become a reason for some of the people in the audience to consider this standard. And I really think that, if you have not already certified your organization to this standard, then, you have to really look at your certification program plan. The reason I say this is because I don't have to give you any more input on the importance of security. The slide in front of you also has some data. So I will not get into some data point, but let me share some examples that what happens when the information security related risks are not adhered to. Entire networks can come down. So all of you, in better times, and I'm sure even recently, even though India has made great strides in demonetization and digital money, you still need cash. For cash, you need ATMs. All ATMs usually, most of the ATMs in the country are run by one network provider. Right? Imagine one small glitch in the system, and all networks can come down. Now, if this seems like a doomsday scenario, this actually happened a few years ago in UK. I won't name the bank, huge bank. The entire ATM network came crashing down. It took, in most parts of London and most parts of developed UK, it took 3 days for the network to come back. And in other parts of UK, it took up to a week for the network to come back. Right? So these are not doomsday scenarios, or these are not things happening on Mars and Jupiter. These are happening on our own planet. And every day you would be hearing, not every day, but every other week you would be hearing some ransomware kind of situation. Of course, those are also covered by other related standards. But the mother of all those standards is this kind of the information security risks that we carry and don't look at, right? So most of you would be aware that risk becomes an issue when it actually materializes, right? So the entire standard and the entire work that we do, or this whole standard helps us do, is to let the risk remain a risk. It should not become an issue, right? So sometimes we can't eliminate the risk, but we can mitigate the risk. In fact, many times you can't really eliminate the risk. The risk still exists. A small percentage of chance is always there that those risks will exist. But what can we do as an organization so that the risk can be mitigated? And in that sense, the 27K or 27001 as specifically, and the current version is a 2013 version. This specifies the requirements for establishing and maintaining, implementing, and of course, like all standards, improving the requirements of an information security management system in your organization. I use the term, very common term, but the term CIA. Now CIA is not coined by me. Now it's not the CIA you are thinking about, but it is about confidentiality, integrity, and availability, right? So this standard is all about these three aspects, And of course, more detail will come when Suresh gives you a detailed input. How has DXC benefited? See, DXC is a large IT services organization, over $17 billion in revenue, bigger than many well-known IT service providers that you might be more aware of. Of course, it's a new organization, a merged organization of several other organizations, so the brand name is new. But it does benefit significantly from being able to assure customers. And many of our customers are of the nature that I gave you an example of earlier: large network providers, airlines, ATM service providers, banks, utility providers, entire payment gateways, entire backup the network for all utility or electricity or water or these kind of services. So large networks are DXC's specialties, and for us to be able to give some assurance to clients that, look, we will not bring your network down because of some silly mistake from our point. Of course, there can be other things that can happen. When you manage a large network, multiple things can go wrong, right? So IT things can go wrong, services can go wrong, and some mistake can happen. But this is one area that used to be a concern for clients earlier, and as IT is becoming more and more pervasive, it is, and Shirish earlier mentioned IoT and other such things. The avenues of bringing down, or the mechanisms of bringing down the network, and I'm giving the extreme example, but in all cases networks may not come down, but other situations as well have increased. Right? Earlier, when the systems were disconnected, right, when I started my career, many systems were disconnected. So the chances of bringing down a system was very low because it is not connected. Now, because everything is connected, it also opens the system or the whole entire network to a lot of vulnerabilities. Right? So that is where the need for these kind of systems come in. And DXC benefits significantly by giving assurance to its clients that we follow all the practices, standards, methods, tools that are prescribed or suggested or recommended through the application of such standards. And by seeking and gaining and retaining the certification, we are demonstrating that commitment that we have. And of course, the partnership with LR over the years is also quite fruitful in that sense. Other benefits also exist, right? Because when you do something like this, there is a lot of additional benefit that comes in, that there are better controls, better risk management. Your employees start to think in a risk mitigation kind of a manner. Otherwise, explaining to employees that what is risk and why it should be controlled can sometimes be a difficult task. Right? So, and I would strongly urge, and I would therefore conclude in a couple of minutes by saying that you should strongly consider something like this. And even if you don't consider certification, implementation of the requirements of these kind of standards are extremely important. Of course, we have gone one step ahead. We are now implementing and during the certification process of ISO 27701, which is a related data privacy standard. And the 27K is actually the mother standard. So you would need a certification for this to be able to go to the next related standard. So these are in times where the security related vulnerabilities are significant, it is incumbent upon us to make sure that we also fortify ourselves, right? So that's what we can do, right? So you can make sure that your door is shut for such vulnerability. A good example I give sometimes is that when we are currently in a situation where Corona or COVID-19 or whatever name you call it, the pandemic and all, what are we doing, right? We are taking a vaccine. We are making sure that the risks are mitigated. So when the vaccine was not there, we were trying to limit our interactions. We were trying to stay with the social distancing part, cleaning our hands, sanitizing, that is, and regularly staying away, not touching our ears, eyes and nose, all these things. Now convert this to a information security scenario, right? You try and close your doors. If any small incident happens, you sanitize it, you isolate the incident, you isolate the servers. That's what you do, right? So that's what happens in information security also. Once server is attacked, You isolate that server. One person gets COVID, you isolate the person. So these are huge similarities, and I'm using this similarity to drive home a point that exactly the same thing is to be done to your information security and related risks. So with that, I think I would conclude and welcome Sirish to continue with the presentation. One small thing, I generally refer a book or recommend a book whenever I get a chance. There's a fantastic book called The Case for ISO 27001 by Alan Calder. He's one of the, I would say, leading figures in this space. So even if you're not going for certification and you want to enrich your knowledge in this space, of course, do attend webinars like this. And because in a capsule, you will get a lot of knowledge. But if you are the book reading type, here is a book that I could recommend. So thank you for the opportunity for the organizing team. And I would hand over to Sirish.
Thank you, Anshuman. It's very nice. And yes, I do agree that CSC or DXC has had a excellent run with these standards and does implement this very well consistently across many locations. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, I will take over from here and we will introduce ourselves to the subject. Then I would again, after some time, invite Mr. Nath to come in, and then I would come back to conclude. So that is how we would do this. Now, there is one question which all senior executives keep thinking, how can we be assured? How do we sleep well? Because they keep reading all the time about what Anshuman was just mentioning about cybersecurity threats, ATM networks going down, supply chains getting impacted. So naturally, they are worried about their own businesses. So how are they supposed to stay away from that? So one thing that they think, or what this means, is that we need to be able to demonstrate due diligence in doing our best to protect our reputation, finances, our supply chains from all these cyber threats that exist and the new ones that are emerging. If we look at these cyber threats, typically there have been some which are traditional, but they don't go away because they are traditional. They are still around and they still continue to impact us. One of the first one always has been natural disasters and unforeseen events. Even in India now we see, while this example talks of a California fire, we have seen in India now that even the rains are more intense and it sometimes shuts down a full city for 2 to 3 days. It impacts everybody. People can't reach their offices. So many things happen. There are continuity issues. Pandemic has been one of the biggest examples we all have, where pandemic was just one of the words in a textbook or a dictionary. We never experienced one till last year, March, when it hit us. If you look at data breaches and compromised storage, yes, this is something again that has been happening, and there have been a lot of cyber attacks on companies. And these we keep reading in the newspaper where we see a particular data or a particular website got compromised, and we start thinking, oh, I'm registered on this website. We are today members in so many things. We are in loyalty programs, airline loyalty programs. We have so much data lying around. We are also using so many of these payment gateways today, or pockets as we call, and even our data is lying there. So we are always worried what would happen. And another impact, which is again traditional but always stronger and stronger by the year, and we have to keep fighting back, is malware. It is something which keeps surprising us, the way it hits us, and also the kind of impact it can have. It can bring down networks across an organization or a country within no time, and this is something that impacts us. Ransomware, which gets loaded through phishing mails maybe, is also one of the segments which has been impacting organization and continues to impact. Rather, phishing has been the highest threats in the last more than a year since people are sitting at home. Industrial espionage through targeted groups, through organized crime, is another aspect. We now know it is not only industrial espionage, data is also now being used to influence, as we read, the outcome of political events. Nothing proven, but everybody is talking about it, about how the preferences of the population are captured and how data is analyzed. Internet of Things, which I spoke about, Anshuman again mentioned about it. We know when companies have moved to IoT, In my example, when I'm auditing companies for various standards, I realize not only the large companies, even the smaller companies, small scale and medium scale, these kind of manufacturing units have also started implementing IoT. Now you can imagine the depth to which it is going. And one word which Anshuman used, all pervasive. Yes, even IoT is like that. Now these are all edge devices and they may not always be really hardened and they come from vendors. So when they integrate with our system, also they bring in new risks and new vulnerabilities. So that is again something that we need to think about. Now, what has happened in the last 1 year is the shape of organization and the organizational risk has changed. Like we were working through secure offices, now we are working through homes. It's not that our homes are not secure, but they were not designed for working and with the kind of networks, connectivities that we have in office. So we are on a home Wi-Fi rather than a corporate network, which is probably more secure. And these common home Wi-Fis are something which are built through a fiber across all homes within the society. So we are working through those. So that is one thing that has changed. People are at remote locations logging in. Our screen time has increased from face to face. So many of the screens have data which can be captured. Otherwise, in office, we felt more secure. So this is again another change that has happened. The next change is managed devices to personal devices. Many people are also logging in through personal devices, not because the company has not provided managed devices. They do have, but there are situations when they are traveling, and when they're traveling, they may go through their mobile. So there are a lot of these personal devices coming onto the network. So companies are spending more time and money to now secure even those devices because the depth of the risk and threat has now increased and rather it has widened. So we have to even consider this. So most of the organizations which are now looking at these are actually, feeling the impact of this, and that is where the change is happening. Now, when we look at security and resilience, we know that we just now said that there is a loss of control with regard to the secure environment. The so-called office-only functions have also shifted, and we have all taken permissions from our clients to work away from the secure offices that we built. Employees are generally more vulnerable because humans are impacted by the environment they work in, and an office environment naturally made them more secure, and they would not, even think of doing things which sitting at home isolated people may do. So they are more vulnerable. Home networks are open and unstable. I just spoke about BYOD or bringing your own device risk and the limited control over these devices. And last but not the least, we have impact of limited connections. Now, this is something that organizations have been able to get over in the last 1.5 years because we've been in this situation since March last year. But then the workforce engagement challenge remains. People who have joined new, we do not know if they joined remotely, how close they are to the ethos of the organization. So many of our awareness programs, etc., are dependent on this. Okay. Continuity plans, when we made them, we tested them for really short durations. We tested them for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and we had our return to RTO times defined accordingly. But now if you look at it, we all got tested beyond what we had planned or ever thought we need to plan. And so continuity plans now need to be more robust. They need to include all kind of threats and vulnerabilities and try to think of scenarios which are different. Most of our previous continuity plans took alternative sites. Like if I'm working out of Chennai, I will say Bangalore, Hyderabad or Kolkata is my alternative site. I'm working out of Pune, I say Gurgaon is my alternate site. But here we faced a scenario where the whole country was in a lockdown, the whole region was in a lockdown, and that situation continues. So our resilience thinking has undergone a complete change. So information security, threats and resilience has undergone a change, and we need to consider this when we make that. Physical access is restricted for a long period of time to various sites. So that can also add to vulnerability. And we also know that the backend support process requires some amount of physical intervention. And that is what has moved. And now we need to plan in a way that we know that our staff, which needs to give backend support, is able to do that physical intervention even in case of such scenarios. Earlier, we did not plan for it. So I think we need to consider that. Now, before I move on to maybe cloud security, I would invite Mr. Nath to come in and add his experience to this webinar. Mr. Nath, please. Yeah. Mr. Nath?
Mr. Nath, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm audible now.
Yes, very much. Thank
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you for the opportunity to talk to all of you. I've been listening with keen interest to my speakers just before me, and who I understand have wide industry experience in implementing ISO 27001. So a couple of things I will talk from our office. Our office, the Office of the National Security Council Secretariat, deals with national security issues, and one of the verticals here deals with cybersecurity issues. So we have the National Cybersecurity Coordinator functioning from here, and I'm part of that unit. So so standards and certification is something that we are very keen on. And here I would like to tell that we have got the IT Act, and there are certain things which are there, like the rules under the IT Act, and where the IT Act, they are not. There is some wording which talks of reasonable good practices, like 27001 for that, but basically talks of personally identifiable information, PII sort of a thing. Then in the rules, there's a mention of the NCIPC that it will actually come up with guidelines for the critical information infrastructure. Other than that, if you look at specifically like that 27001 being mandated or something like that, you would not find either in the Act or the rules that is there. But there have been some sectoral initiatives that have happened, and different sectoral sectors, the regulators therein have actually come up with some guidelines and all. So before I come to that, I would like to say that we are also talking in terms of now the national cybersecurity strategy for 2021, for which we have had wide-ranging consultations with the industry and the general public also, and we have had presentations from different stakeholders. The draft has been prepared, and interministerial consultations have also happened, and it's gone to the Prime Minister's office for review before it's approved by the cabinet. There you will find it's a holistic document. It addresses the complete canvas of cybersecurity initiatives that are required to be taken. It's got a time frame of 5 years, and we have a wish list of what we would like to achieve in 5 years. And there are strategy statements, and then there are also a implementation plan that is there for that. Why I'm mentioning this is that this aspect of having some standards based and certification based activities is one thing that's been taken into consideration in the preparation of that strategy document. And there though the document is yet to come, but I'll talk of some initiatives which have some parallel to the 27001. Like we have told NCIPC, the National Critical Information Infrastructure Protection Center, to come up with a certification framework for human resource. Because one of the things they realized is that when we looked at the CISO profile, we found that there's nothing standard that is prescribed for a CISO. And many of the organizations, the CISO is also playing a ancillary role to a normal role that he used to play. And since the CISO is a very pivotal role he plays, and he has for us also, the CISO is the one who provides visibility into an organization about the practices that they practice there. So then the NCIPC is now working with the Quality Control QCI of India, QCI, for coming up with the framework of cybersecurity, the IT infrastructure and the cybersecurity practices, and then coming out of the framework, the roles, and then finally the skill sets that are required and the certification framework for that. And the certification framework would include the certification of the skills for individuals, certification of the agencies, training organizations which are there, and certifying organizations. That is the ones to provide the certification. So this is one area. So, and we are keen that we go down this path. And now coming to ISO 27001 2013, why is it important? First thing is, it just takes a 360-degree view of the cybersecurity. You look at the 14 domains or direction, the aspects of cybersecurity talks about. It talks about the policy that the organization should policy. It talks of the organization within the organization for the information security. It talks of the HR. It talks of asset management. That is very important part. Many organizations they do not even know what are the assets that they have. And then how do you secure assets if you do not have visibility on the assets? You would have actually updated patch management you would have done for some of the assets, and some of the assets would have missed out. So asset management is one important part of it. Access control, cryptography. I mean, it has. And when you talk of in the organization of IAS, you will find that even the work from home, which we were talking of after the pandemic, it's something remote working and work from home is something that's already been covered in your 27001. There are controls for that. So communication security, or your supplier relationship, which is very important. Third-party suppliers, how do you ensure security? Because lots of vulnerabilities come out of that supplier relationship. They have, you have aspects for incident management, business continuity management, and then of course the compliance requirements. So you have controls for all of that. So it gives you a complete dimension. It's a document which anybody who is entering into the field of information security and cybersecurity would go through that and look at the different dimensions that are there. So that is one important part of it, that it gives you a 360-degree view of the information security aspects of it and the controls that should be applied. And then for you to do a gap analysis based on that for your own organization. And then, based on the gap analysis and doing a risk assessment and then deciding what controls are to apply. That way, the document is very good. And it helps you in actually putting together a mitigation mechanism for your organization. I will say centrally, is there a mandate? As I've said, that there's no mandate that somebody should go in for a 27001 certification. But sectorally, yes. If you look at the telecom sector is governed by the licenses that are provided to the telecom service providers. And there's a separate chapter on security that is there in the licenses, where it provides for the organizations to have a security policy, the service providers. It also provides for them to have annual security audits. And then when they talk of the annual security audits, they talk that is where it's mentioned that they should have audits as per standards, and that's where the 27001 is mentioned. So many of the big operators actually have 27001 implemented there. When you talk of the banking sector, in the banking sector also you'll find that there is a cybersecurity framework that the RBI has come about, and there's a Gopalakrishna Committee report also, which is there, where they have the reference to standards, but the certifications are not mandated. But still, many of the banks have gone in for the certification because for their own benefit it is there. When we come down to the power sector is one sector that in the last 3-4 months you'll find there's a lot of activity that is happening in the power sector. There have been a few committees that have been formed for coming up with regulations, guidelines, both for procurement of equipment and for implementation of controls and security practices, best practices in the organization. It is a work in progress there, and there the regulations are due to come. So let's see how these regulations would come in. But there also, of course, there is a talk in terms of standards that should be implemented. So overall, what I will say is if you look at from the perspective of the public sector and the government regulations, there are no specific regulations which tells that you should implement 27001. Though they talk of where they talk of using standards like 27001. And from a person who has actually been involved with studying the standard and in being earlier in the telecom sector and looking at it, so it's a very good standard which gives you a complete holistic view of an organization and the type of dimensions of security that are there and the type of controls that should be implemented for that. It really helps you in doing a gap analysis and deciding on what are those controls that you should put in place for you to do mitigation for all the risks and threats that are there for you, specifically for your organization. So with these words, I would say that wish you well again for this workshop, webinar that you are hosting. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Nath. I think yes, very pertinent. What you said is the 14 domains and the controls that ISO gives. It's a very holistic kind of a framework, which is ready-made for any organization. And if one decides to go by that, I think we are able to actually identify all the threats, vulnerabilities, and it does give us a good governance structure. No two ways about it. And it was nice of you to share with us what is happening at the government level and how the Indian cyber infrastructure from the institutional perspective is also always looking forward, because I think the kind of networks we have with Aadhaar and NPCI and even the payment gateways like BHIM, I think they are a benchmark to the whole world actually. And we are also able to do our elections online. So the government sector in this particularly has been amazing in the support. Thank you, Mr. Nath.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. I think I'll continue now, where we have already seen the traditional threats and we have reached a point where what resilience could be. Let's look at the new dimension of cloud computing environment which has come. All organizations are trying to look at agility, resilience, and economies of scale. What we have to understand is when we are doing this is cloud by itself also exposes us to some new threat. One of them being loss of governance. Like it does not mean we have no control. We do have a controller supplier, but there is a third party involved. Then we may also get into a lock-in period in the sense that there are proprietary tools that we use with our vendors, so we may get locked into that. There could be an isolation failure because there are too many jumps of networks that we have to go through to reach our cloud computers and servers and data. There could be compliance risks that come up with these interfaces that we have. There could be an interface component compromise, and even that could be one of the issues. Data protection continues to remain, and as we started by saying, confidentiality, integrity, availability, that is all around the information security assets and the data. When the data gets deleted, it's so we are a little insecure whether that data deletion is incomplete, and we know there are multiple techniques and what techniques are being used and whether that data can be retrieved. Malicious insider remains to be a threat through ages, probably through centuries. Even when IT did not exist, malicious insider was there right from Mahabharat time. So I think that continues and nothing changes. We have an issue around the definitions of data controller, data processor, and being able to define the boundaries and how the interface happens and how that data would move and how the controls would move, and that needs to be looked at. Privacy has come up more with regard to the personally identifiable information that is becoming more and more important. Even the Indian environment is now becoming more aware about it. There will be more litigations around it in the near future, and each and every data would get marked accordingly. Just a few years back, we spoke very openly about personally identifiable information. Things have changed. There is a lot of legislation and regulation coming around it. There is a data protection bill which is already tabled, what Mr. Nath was mentioning, and even that we need to look at how it comes through and how it impacts us. So these risks do not follow particularly any order of criticality, but we have to weigh them against the traditional solutions. What is your business need? We all know now that the product cycles are short, so we need to keep being lean and be able to move fast. And to do that, we also need to move to these cloud solutions. So while we do that, we need to be able to capture that so that there is less risk for our reputation, or we don't have much of legal implications. Ultimately, we know we can outsource the responsibility, but not the accountability to our people and our stakeholders, the customers, the suppliers, and the society at large. And we need to consider that. So when we come up to look at this whole thing, we need to understand that it is like a surgeon saying that the procedure is very complicated, so I will not follow any process. Would you trust a surgeon for an operation who says that I will not follow the procedure? It is the same thing. We started on slide number 1 with due diligence as a word. We need to do that due diligence, and 27001 offers us with that particular framework, and we need to consider that. Now, let's look at what is the power in this independent assurance that we have. One is you have access to expertise. When you have external auditors coming to audit you, they gain their expertise through you, the customer. When a standard is new, they may be doing it for the first time, but within a span of 1 year, they may have done 30 audits. So they have gained more experience, they have more industry insight. They're always looking at different continual improvement examples, so they can actually understand those better and be able to audit better. The frameworks are very proactive. They help us adjust to the changing reality, and that is how the standard also works. Accredited certification gives us a lot of credibility in the market that we not only have a governance system in place, it is audited, it is managed well, and it at the end of the day helps build awareness and a common terminology. That is the biggest contribution of any ISO standard or a management system standard. 27001 through its domains and controls gives us so much of common terminology that we exactly know what we are talking. At the end of it, all this builds trust and credibility. We said, can we sleep well in the night? Yeah, we need assurance. And to have that assurance, we need to take the right actions, and that comes through this. Okay, I'll quickly share one example of a company called Octo Telematics. Now, this is an integrated management system where information security to the right, if you see, is taken as a gateway. And that is the gateway standard along with quality. And then they have built upon privacy, continuity, and cloud security. Octo Telematics is a company which supports multinationally insurance companies and also mobile devices which are embedded in cars and other vehicles. So there is a lot of data transfer there also. So to get that system running well and give assurance to its customers, they went into an integrated management system. And Octo did business continuity much before pandemic hit us. So for them, this became a fantastic case study where Octo could continue to work in a secure way, and they confirmed that this integrated management system helped them actually tide over this long break that COVID-19 gave to physical working, and they have become more resilient to go over these unprecedented situations. So I think that this is a fantastic example. You can just check it on Google and you will find enough information on Octo Telematics. Great. So just to sum up now, what is trending? What is trending in the market is that yes, data confidentiality is going to be big. So security and data confidentiality, hybrid model is here to stay, and we are not going to go back to the old normal where everybody goes to office. So it's going to be a blended approach in the future. Cloud architect, if you see at the job opportunities, cloud architect has become the flavor of the season. So it shows the amount of companies that are moving on to cloud. Cybersecurity will continue to be a pressing issue of the decade. There is tremendous growth in the B2C segment. B2C segment depends on remote connections and payment gateways. And we need to stay assured even when you buy a book or you buy a television on Amazon or any other site for that matter, or you go to one of the Tata Click sites, it doesn't matter. The whole thing is, am I secure? Because I am sharing my banking data, my credit card data there. Even education and conducting exams and tests is moving to a hybrid model. So there is tremendous change, and we need to consider that. Now, to help you build this security as far as Lloyd's Register is concerned, we have the whole gamut range of services. We offer you the training, we offer you the essential part, which is the certification to all those standards that I mentioned in the Octo Circle: 27001 business continuity, 9001 cloud privacy and privacy management. these are under the specialist standards, and we also have Netitude, which can offer penetration testing, vulnerability scanning, financial transaction, managed security, SOC for that matter. So all these services are also present in Netitude. So when we look at this, yes, ISO 27001 is applicable to all sectors, because all sectors today have IT pervasive and they are IT dependent. So one cannot say that, okay, I am into manufacturing of industrial systems, I am into manufacturing automobiles. Everything is a IT system today. You shut down the IT system and the manufacturing stops, services stop. So there is no two ways. It is applicable everywhere. I think that's it. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you, Mr. Anshuman Tiwari and Mr. Nath, for coming in and adding something, adding some value to this. Over to you, Pallavi.
Thank you so much, Shirish. Thank you, Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Nath. It was indeed a great session. And now I request all the participants, whatever questions you have, you can please start sending them here in the questions panel. And I would, speakers and I would be happy to answer them.
Just make sure that the tough questions are for Shirish and easier ones.
I have bribed Pallavi.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pallavi. I think you will be able to read those in the comments box.
Yes, yes. So we have our first question. It says that for somebody who has already implemented IMS, integrated management system, how easy it would be to implement ISO 27001?
Okay. I think when you mention IMS, you're trying to say quality, environment, and health and safety, which is the core IMS that most companies implement. What we have to understand, the beauty of these management systems now with the Annex SL based standards, is that the basic governance model is same. All are 10 clause standards, and they are the ones who, so they give you the base governance structure. Now, what you have to start doing is, as I think Mr. Tiwari mentioned in his session, it's not always necessary that you get certified, but you should bring in the controls. So what I also always recommend to the clients is, even if you're a quality or IMS certified, start looking at the controls given in ISMS, start implementing those. At a time when you feel it will help that you can present yourself better to the stakeholders by getting certified, get certified. But does not mean you should lose on the opportunity of having the controls and having a secure organization. Yeah, Pallavi.
Yes, Shirish, if I can.
Please.
So I think good question. So whoever has asked, just to give you some confidence that many companies, at least large ones, including DXC, has already started doing this a couple of years ago. So if you are considering it, it is something that is industry standard. You should strongly consider integrating any new standard actually that you are implementing into your integrated management system. In fact, we are now, pretty much in integrated audit also system, right? So we don't audit for multiple standards. We audit for one, I would say, set of requirements which covers all standards. Same way, your management system should cover all requirements. If you treat these as good practices, like when you're trying to lose weight, somebody tells you, okay, have protein, then says, okay, go for a 5 a.m. walk. Somebody says sleep early. All these are different requirements of a management system. So in one of them will not help, or will help a little bit, but will not be total. Right? As the organizations and the industry becomes complex, you will have needs for other standards, which will cover new challenges which were not there 10 years ago. Right? So treat it as that and you will be fine.
Thank you. I think there is a question which I can read, Mr. Rao.
Yeah.
What are the initiatives for the likely security issues with 5G implementation? Okay, what we have to understand is any standard, management system standard for that matter, is not written for any particular technology. It is a governance framework that has been given to you. So it is just a governance framework. Now it is up to us to be able to identify the threats and vulnerabilities of that new technology which is coming and adopt our systems to that. I used a word in my presentation which said proactive framework. So that is what it means by being proactive. So it is for us, the standard is a baseline and a framework. How much to build over it is company specific. all companies certified to ISO standard are not at the same level. The maturity levels are different, which we have to understand. ISO does not have a built-in maturity system. It just means you're certified, you have a framework. How good it will be, we do not know. So that is up to the company. Thank you, Mr. Rao. I hope it answers your question. Yeah, thank you.
What should be the first step when you're trying to get yourself certified?
To 27001, I think the first step is to, as I said some time back, is understand firstly what is a governance model or what is a governance system, so that you are able to build one for information security. Because those who are already into management systems will be able to do that. But others who are new will not understand what is management system. So if you just look at the controls and start implementing, it will not give you a system. So one, we have to understand what is a management system and then look at the controls. Yeah, I hope it answers. Thank you.
After implementing 27001, what additional tools or technologies should we implement to take care that there are no spyware attacks or malware attacks?
I wish there was an answer for a question like this. I would again repeat, you have a governance and a framework, and for all these things, when you have made your information asset register and you know what are your threats and vulnerabilities on that information assets that you have and the critical assets, based on that threats. Now, if spyware is one of the threat, then you need action on that. Yeah.
Yeah, Shirish, I think I am done with the questions that I can see here. Is there any question that has come to you?
No, I can see on the chat, but we can wait for a minute.
Okay. Please feel free to ask any questions. You can send it directly to Shirish or you can send it to us.
Oh, this chat is only for me, is it? I thought it's a common chat.
Yeah, it is a common chat for panel. Somebody can choose to send directly to you.
Okay.
I think there is one. Oh, say somehow it has come to only to me. Maybe the participant has selected me. How far is client able to allocate budget for information security? Well, Sriram, who's the person who's asked this question. So, budget related question is, of course, totally local to an organization. But I can assure you that most leading organizations, or at least most organizations which are concerned about client safety and their own safety also, are providing more than adequate budget, including, for example, if I take DXC's example, DXC is investing heavily in this space because we do realize that this is not a threat which is for other companies. This is very much for our company, and of course, so it is not like I keep saying, and I like to give analogies that, when we see some road accident or we read in the newspaper there was a road accident and this happened, that happened, without making it too bloody and gory. All of us believe that it happens to others and we still go out without helmet, without safety belt and everything else. Then one day we are in that newspaper, right? So unfortunately, in some cases, we are not there to read the newspaper.
Very true.
That's the reality of the situation, that if companies are not investing in this, one day they become news for the wrong reasons. And then it is too late. And the investment is really limited, very, very, very limited. If you already have a organized, established quality management system, these are all incremental requirements to that. And, this is like, what is the cost of good health? So I'll keep going back to these kind of examples because this is how people understand that if I have to convince a senior management about the cost of good health, then, maybe I'm in the wrong company. So then other actions are required. But thanks for the question, Sriram.
Well said, Mr. Tiwari. I believe we are at the end of a session. No further questions, at least at my end. Is there any question at all?
No.
With you, Mr. Tiwari? Okay.
No, not with me.
I guess we can wrap up the session. It was indeed a pleasure. I mean, at least for me, an absolute pleasure. And I believe for our participants to hear what you, Mr. Tiwari, and Mr. Nath had to say today, Shirish. So thank you so much for being here, for taking out the time, and for speaking to our attendees. We really look forward to another one of these sessions, say in another 6-8 months. And thank you so much to all who attended the session today. It was an absolute pleasure to be able to connect with you. So thank you so much to all of you.
Hello, one quick observation.
Yeah.
I have kept an eye on the number of participants. The number of participants hasn't dropped. In fact, it has increased, right? So, which is
yes, which is a good thing. Yes, which is a very good indicator.
My thanks to all those who stayed on, like Pallavi said, and of course, it's also a testimony to what a wonderful presentation Shirish presented. And I can assure you that Shirish and his knowledge set is not limited to this webinar. Fantastic service provider. So as you consider your journey in this space, Lloyd should be with you.
Thank you so much for saying that, Mr. Tiwari. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Yeah, and have a great evening. Stay safe, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.